Secretary General of the Quebec Press Council. I'd just like to say, first of all, what an honor it is to be here today and to discover your beautiful country that is Armenia. It's my first time, and it's really a privilege to discover such a wonderful country with such rich history and culture. So it's a real privilege to be here, and I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference, this very important conference, and in particular Nune and Arshalus, who have made my coming here possible. Thank you for making it happen. So today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. So for the past a little bit over a year at the Quebec Press Council in Canada, we've been researching, evaluating, and trying to interpret the different uses of artificial intelligence in newsrooms in Quebec and Canada, but across the world, and how we can come up with our own guidelines at the Press Council and within media to adapt to this new reality that is very much here and evolving very fast. So tomorrow I'll be doing a more specific workshop on how you can adapt your own guidelines in your own media to take into account the current use and future use of artificial intelligence. But for today, I'd like to give you a broader overview of the use of artificial intelligence in journalism and the reality that we are all facing at the moment. So I'd like to start by asking you in the room, does anybody know about this media called Channel One in America? It's very new. So if you've seen about it already, you've seen the pilot. It's going to be launched this summer in America. It's actually a Canadian investor who lives in California in the Silicon Valley, and he's decided to launch this media that is entirely generated by AI, and I'd like to play you a little bit to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. All right, here we go.
Hello, and welcome to Channel One, a new way of consuming, reporting,
not a real person,
and
by the way.
thinking about the news powered
computer.
by artificial intelligence. Today, you'll witness AI-generated stories and headlines, captivating visuals and data-driven insights. From global news to finance to entertainment, we'll show you how technology enables us to bring you a global perspective 24/7, right from the heart of our AI-native newsroom. All presented by our team of AI-generated reporters.
Maybe you hear the words artificial intelligence and you're immediately skeptical
Also
or
not a
concerned
real
about
person,
technology
this is a
going
robot.
crazy. But everything you'll see on Channel One relies on trusted sources and fact-checking, and uses AI to give you news the way you want it, personalized, localized, and distilled. Through it all, our mission is to provide you with accurate, unbiased, and trustworthy news. Technology may be the tool, but journalism's core values of integrity and accountability are at the heart of everything we do.
Today we're going to show off some of the technology we're using to build Channel One. We'll show you how AI powers and empowers our newsroom to deliver journalism that's fast, trustworthy, and accurate. Let's start with our reporters. You can hear us and see our lips moving, but no one was recorded saying what we're all saying. I'm powered by sophisticated systems behind the scenes, and I can speak in any language. Για παράδειγμα, αυτή τη στιγμή μιλάω στα ελληνικά. O kung pinapanood mo ako mula sa Maynila, marunong akong magsalita ng Filipino. எனக்கும் தமிழ் பேசத் தெரியும் என்று நீங்கள் யூகித்திருக்க மாட்டீர்கள் என்று நான் நம்புகிறேன். In fact, you can see even more language samples on our website. Channel One's anchors can even be completely generated to have their own personality, appearance, and voice.
And what is AI native news? First, here's what it's not. It's not fake news. There isn't a computer somewhere writing its own news stories about things that haven't happened. Our system relies only on trusted news sources to bring together the best journalism on any topic from around the world into a single news program. We'll also be using artificial intelligence technology in a number of other ways. For example, thanks to our translation capabilities, we can feature on-the-ground, real-life reporters from around the world to get you closer to a particular story.
In other cases, it's even possible to create footage of events where cameras were not able to capture the action. It's the same way that a courtroom sketch is not a literal depiction of actual events, but can still provide important information or nuance to a news report. And wherever AI has been used to add context, or in any way alter existing sources or depictions of actual events, on-screen graphics will clearly indicate the nature of the alteration. Human editors and producers are also involved in checking the stories for accuracy and clarity at every step of the process.
But maybe the best way to explain what Channel 1 is just to show you. Right now, we're going to jump into a program featuring a selection of stories, all produced with the help of AI. So, please enjoy the world's first look at Channel 1.
This is Channel 1.
Military operations against Hamas by Israeli Defense Forces continue in Gaza, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejecting the idea of a ceasefire in Gaza unless hostages are released. This week, the White House said Israel has agreed to 4-hour daily pauses of operations in order to allow people to flee along humanitarian corridors. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky urged his nation's people to stay focused and strong in the...
Zelensky. Thank you, Jacob. So after seeing this, you may be sensing some severe anxiety or worry or concern, or fear even, and I want you to know that you are not alone. I share the same worries and the same concerns. But this is the reality that we're facing, and it's not in the far future, it's coming tomorrow, and it's actually already there. And if this person can do it, the thing is, anybody can do it now. And anybody can provide their own artificially generated news, and very soon the public will not be able to tell the difference and whether these people are real or whether they are, as they are, all robot reporters. So, that being said, I want to tell you now about journalism and how we are going to use AI within our newsrooms. So, does anybody here know, I'd like to introduce you to Yoshua Benjo. Has anybody heard of him? Yoshua Benjo is from Montreal, my hometown. He is a world-leading scientist in artificial intelligence. And you may not know that my hometown in Montreal is actually a world capital of artificial intelligence and scientific advancement of artificial intelligence for all different kinds of fields, whether it's medical, engineering, or other fields. So he's won the Turing Award, which is the Nobel Prize equivalent of computer science. He is an advisor to the UN Scientific Advisory Board. He's advised the US Senate on regulation of AI, and he's a professor at the University of Montreal, where I live. So we had Yoshua Benjo over at the Press Council to come give us his perspective, and his expertise is deep learning of artificial intelligence. He came to give us his perspective on how artificial intelligence could impact information. So what's really interesting about Yoshua is that he's dedicated his entire career into the advancement of the science of artificial intelligence. But now he is dedicating his career to advising people, the general public and governments, about the dangers of artificial intelligence and how it can be an extreme threat for human nature. So what he says is, AI is a danger to political systems, to democracy, to the very nature of truth. And it's really fascinating because he told us in this very humbling and emotional way how he feels that he's based his whole career on developing something that is like the nuclear bomb, and now he was trying to make sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands. At the moment, artificial intelligence is in the hands of the big tech giants, mostly American big tech giants. We're talking, of course, about Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, etc. And it is getting into the hands of certain governments that can use it for, of course, manipulation and disinformation. So what he says is, he's told the Financial Times, if you want humanity and society to survive these challenges, we can't have competition between people, companies, countries, and a very weak international coordination. This is part of the reason I'm here today, and I think it's so important that we talk between countries, with media and journalism organizations across the world, and that we learn from each other on how we can face this giant beast that is artificial intelligence. Of course, artificial intelligence can be used for very successful reporting and in enriching the journalism that we do, and indeed it's been used for about a decade already in the newsrooms. So we can see in 2016, the Washington Post was one of the first newspapers to use artificial intelligence to report on the Rio Olympics. So they were bringing out the information of which country had won, and this was done by a robot because there were so many competitions at the same time. So that was one of the pioneers. It's been used in data journalism. You know about the International Consortium for Investigative Journalists. You may have even a representative here in Armenia. We have one in Quebec at the public broadcaster. When they did the Panama Papers, they didn't yet have the AI technology, but very soon after, for the Pandora Papers, they did, and they use it now to go through millions of information, of documents, of data, to extract trends, and which then brings stories that they wouldn't have been able to find as human beings, just because of the sheer amount of data there is. It's been used in newsroom, and you probably have used it already for automated correction, translation, transcription, voice to speech, to text kind of transcription, and verification of fake images, fake news, facial recognition through TinEye to find out if the person that's on the picture is actually the person on the picture, and that kind of thing. So I want to tell you about this AI. That's what I'll call the traditional AI that's been used in the past 10 years. It is not generative AI. Generative AI arrived in November 2022 and arrived to the public, I should say, in November 2022 with ChatGPT was among the first. And that was a real turning point for information and journalism. Because of course now with generative AI, you can create content. So you can create images through instruments and like Midjourney and DALL-E, large language models, that's your ChatGPT or your Google version, Bard. If you're using ChatGPT, remember the current free version has data predating September 2021, but the current version is up to date on current information. Custom GPTs are being used now as well. So this quote is from the Columbia Journalism Review that brings together some great thinkers on journalism, and the editorial said this: "Journalism's future is at stake. The last similarly transformative technology, the internet, took decades to fully overthrow the media's old order. But in the case of AI, journalists won't have nearly as much time for chin stroking, thinking about it. Our industry must coalesce around a set of standards soon, or it will be too late. The AI bosses will already be in charge." So this gives you a little bit of a sense of the urgency to act. So we're going to look at establishing rules in journalism. Of course, we could talk about regulation on a great scale from governments and across governments from alliances like the European Union. But I'm going to talk to you about our little square, which is journalism, and how we can set up our rules. This comes from I was inspired by the Nieman Lab. Nieman Lab is the journalism laboratory at Harvard University that does a lot of research on digital journalism. And they've come up with, they've gone through lots of different media and how they are establishing their own rules for using AI. And they picked up 10 main issues that I'd like to look at quickly with you. And the first, so we're going to look at human oversight, transparency, which tools are banned versus allowed in journalism. We're going to talk about accountability, privacy and confidentiality, cautious experimentation, building a strategy, training journalists, bias, and adaptability. First is human oversight. I created this with artificial intelligence with the use of DALL-E. I prompted DALL-E this prompt, in the style of a Van Gogh painting, humans monitoring a computer. So of course I thought it would show the irony. Of course there were no computers in Van Gogh's time, and I thought this could illustrate in a nice way how we need to be always bringing our human oversight on what the computer is doing, because the machine will create a lot of false information, like computers painted by Van Gogh. So here I'm going to take you through what a few different big international media have said about how they will use the different rules we're going to look at. And this one is for human oversight. So The Guardian in London says, the use of our generative AI requires human oversight and needs to be linked to a specific benefit and the explicit permission of a senior editor. Le Parisien in Paris says no content will be published without prior human supervision. We're talking here always about the use of generative AI. The Insider says, always verify originality. Make sure to run any passages received from ChatGPT through Google search and Grammarly's plagiarism search. This actually is not up to date anymore, because you cannot use these to find out where the source of the ChatGPT information is from, because it's now so blended together that it's almost impossible to source the text in many, many occasions. The Finnish news agency STT says, don't let the AI decide for you, but always assess the usefulness of the answer yourself. After human oversight comes transparency, and we've been talking a lot about transparency today. So Reuters puts it this way: we will implement AI practices to make the use of data and AI in our products and services understandable to the public, of course. The Guardian says we will be open with our readers when we use generative AI. Some media have decided in their guidelines to put what is allowed and what is not allowed. So banned versus allowed uses of AI. Wired in the States says we will not publish stories with text generated by AI, for example, ChatGPT, except when the AI-generated character is the whole point of the story. They also say we may try AI for tasks in the news reporting process, like suggesting headlines or generating ideas or text for short social media posts. I don't know if some of you use these kind of tools already, but they're very popular in the newsroom. For example, journalists, they often hate finding a title for their article. They wrote the whole article and then they have to come up with a title. So AI can suggest it, you can feed it your article. It'll suggest 2 or 3 really cool titles, and then you can pick your favorite one. The Parisien says we reserve the right to use AI for the generation of text and images for illustrative purposes. We will make sure that the origin is explicitly stated for the reader. And the Financial Times in London says we won't publish photorealistic images, so contrary to Le Parisien, generated by AI. But we will explore the use of AI-augmented visuals, for example, for infographics, diagrams, photos. When we will do that, we will make it clear to the reader. So this is some examples of banned versus allowed uses. One last one from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where I used to work. So they put it this way for their journalists: we will not use AI to recreate the voice or likeness of any CBC journalist or personality, except to illustrate how the technology works. But this is unless you have the 2 following conditions. 1, advance approval of our standards office, that's like the editorial policy office, or 2, approval of the individual being recreated. This means the journalist could give his or her own approval for using his voice or her voice to read a newscast, to do a shorter version of a long report that they did. So this, in some cases, could be allowed, at CBC at least. Let's talk now about accountability and responsibility. This is how some media have chosen to put it to the public. In Sweden, Aftonbladet says, we are responsible for everything we publish on the site, including material that is produced using AI. I think this is the most general and important statement that you'll see today. It's very simple. As a media, we are responsible for everything we publish. Whether it comes from the machine, whether it was done artificially or not, at the end, you are responsible. So you cannot say, that was the machine, we didn't know, it wasn't us. Reuters puts it this way: we will implement and maintain appropriate accountability measures for our use of data and our AI products and services. The next rule is privacy and confidentiality. I don't know if you're aware that when these robots, these machines, they only work on whatever they are fed, right? So if you feed them some of your material, you have to know that your material is not protected. It could be seen by anyone, including if you feed interviews with confidential sources, and it could even recognize voices. Even if you've tried to encrypt the voices, there are now really sophisticated technology. You think you're protecting the identity of a confidential source, a whistleblower, for example. AI technology can now uncrypt it and come back to the original voice. So in Sweden, Aftonbladet, if it's pronounced correctly, says we protect source protection and do not feed external platforms such as ChatGPT with sensitive or proprietary information. The CBC in Canada says we will not feed confidential or unpublished content into generative AI tools for any reason. This again goes with protecting privacy and confidentiality. All right, the next rule is experimenting. Anybody will tell you, you can't close your eyes on AI. It's happening, it's here to stay. We can compare it to when the internet arrived and some people said, oh, what's this online news business, focus on radio and television and look at where we are now. I think it's quite comparable for the use of AI. So by all means, go and experiment with it. It's really important that journalists understand how it works and what's possible to then know how you can use it responsibly. So the Financial Times, they did this. They created a team in the newsroom that can experiment with AI responsibly. They say we will embrace AI to provide services for readers and clients. The excitement must be accompanied by caution over the risk of misinformation and the corruption of the truth. And finally, this is interesting, all newsroom experimentation with AI will be recorded in an internal register. So they really keep track of what kind of experiments they've done so that it can be shared with other users in the newsroom. All right, let's talk about strategy. You need to think about AI and how you're going to use it, and you need to have some kind of guideline and strategy towards it. So The Guardian puts it this way: we will seek to use generative AI tools editorially only where it contributes to the creation and distribution of original journalism. That's their strategy they're using. I think this is very reassuring for the unions because, of course, a lot of journalists and unions came out fearing they would lose their job and be replaced by these robots that we saw earlier. So it says we're only going to use it if it enriches the journalism that we're already doing, original journalism. And in the Netherlands, De Volkskrant says, we view AI as a tool, never as a system that can replace journalists' work. Number 8 is training. And the German Journalists Association, DJV, puts it this way: the use of artificial intelligence must become an integral part of the training of journalists. Media companies should create appropriate training that includes the misuse of AI. The importance of training. In terms of bias, one example of how the guidelines are put is by The Guardian. We will guard against the dangers of bias embedded within generative tools and their underlying training assets. We've talked about bias a lot today. Of course, as you know, AI only feeds on what it's been trained on in the past. So if there was a bias that could lead to discrimination, for example, it's just going to repeat it. It's not going to create something new that hasn't been done before. So if you ask it, I don't know, you're doing like your Sunday Times version of it's summer season and barbecues are coming up and you want an image of a family barbecue that you're going to create artificially. That could be discussed, whether you should or not. But if you ask a system like DALL-E to bring you up an image of a nice family barbecue, in 99% of cases, it's going to be a man at the barbecue, and the images that are going to come out are going to be like nice, buff-built American men that are not very representative of the common dad. So be careful for bias and have a strategy around avoiding it. And I'll finish with the adaptability of guidelines. The expression, so Wire says, we may modify our perspective over time and will acknowledge any changes. And of course, many of these rules that have been put into place were put into place a year ago and they are already out of date because the technology is evolving so fast. I like to say we are flying the plane as we are building it. So we have to be very quick, train, experiment very quickly, because as the Columbia Journalism Review pointed out, we don't have very much time to think about this, so we need to act urgently. Thank you very much. I'd love to continue the conversation with you and to hear about how you're using AI in your own newsroom. I'd really love to hear from you, so please come see me afterwards or come to the workshop tomorrow